What is glucose and why is it important to understand it?
I love this question. So glucose is also called blood sugar, right? And glucose is your body's favorite source of energy. So make a fist right now with your hand. Okay, so as you're doing this, the muscles in your hand are burning glucose to contract. And for everybody listening to us right now, the cells in your brain are currently burning glucose to understand what we're saying, right? Every single part of your body is burning glucose every nanosecond to keep you alive. And as human beings, the main way that we provide this very important glucose to our body is by eating foods, specifically by eating two categories of foods. Starches, so that's bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, oats, and sugars, anything that tastes sweet, from an apple to my favorite triple layered chocolate cake, okay? So we eat starches and sugars and we give glucose to our body. So you might think, okay, I want lots of energy. Who doesn't want energy? So if glucose is my body's energy, I should give my body as much glucose as possible. I should eat as many starches and sugar as possible. Well, that's actually not the case. I love to take the image of a plant. Do you have any plants at home?
Many.
Okay. So you know that in order to keep a plant alive, you need to give the plant some water. But what happens if you give the plant too much water? It dies. Exactly. And the human body is similar. Some glucose, everything's going great. Too much glucose and problems start happening. Most of us are giving our bodies too much glucose. And this leads to a whole bunch of symptoms. Cravings for sweet foods, chronic fatigue, brain fog, inflammation, faster aging, hormonal issues, and then long-term the development of type 2 diabetes. So my whole purpose is to teach people how to eat the foods that they love, the starches and the sugars, in a way that's not going to cause problems. So how do you keep eating the spaghetti and the cookies and the bread in a way that is not going to damage your health? That's the whole thing.
And that's what I really appreciate about your work and why I'm excited about this conversation, because I think a lot of us think, oh no, I have to cut things out completely, or oh no, I'm going to have to completely shift everything. And actually you're saying maybe that is the case. Actually, let's go there. Yeah, let's talk about that. Is there a need? What is it that needs to be fully cut out? Are there things that we need to definitely avoid in those two buckets that you just shaped for us?
Well, we really don't need sugar. We don't need to eat sweet foods at all. It's really just for pleasure. Your body doesn't need that amount of glucose, that amount of sugar. So when we eat sweet stuff, whether it's fruit or chocolate cake, we're doing it because it releases dopamine in our brain. Dopamine is the pleasure hormone. So sugars we could do without. But listen, I want a chocolate cake for my birthday. I don't want to eat broccoli for my birthday, and it's all around us. Sugar is delicious. It brings us this pleasure. So of course, if you could completely cut it out, it would be better for your health. But I don't think that's realistic for most people. I don't have that kind of willpower. And I haven't you must know people who have completely cut out sugar, but it's quite difficult. What about you? What's your sugar consumption like?
So I'm an extremist, which means I either am eating no sugar. So when I was a monk, I didn't eat sugar for 3 years. Sure. But then I can easily drop back into eating sugar every day because my mother raised me as someone who ate a chocolate bar, a chocolate biscuit, a chocolate yogurt, and a chocolate ice cream every day growing up. So
you're my chocolate brother.
Yes. When you mentioned that chocolate triple layered cake and you post, I'm like, that is my dream. And I have had to, through my wife's coaching, through your work, had to develop a healthier relationship with sugar because I believe a few years ago, I was genuinely addicted to sugar. And I want to talk to you about that. And for me, it's taken a lot of retraining, a lot of steps in between, where now I'm back being the extremist where I'm not eating refined sugars at the moment. But at the same time, I would allow myself on my birthday or an occasion to allow myself to enjoy and indulge. I was wearing a glucose monitor for about 3 to 6 months, like last year. And I was shocked. I was absolutely surprised at the types of things that spiked my glucose levels. I would eat a non-sugar cereal as a test. And that would take it to bad immediately, not even average. It was bad immediately on the glucose levels.
Yeah.
Talk to us about glucose spikes and why are people measuring their glucose levels? What does that show us?
Yeah.
And what are we trying to get our glucose to map at?
So when we eat a meal or food that contains a lot of glucose, so for example, a chocolate cake is a good option, a good example, or a plate of pasta or anything else that's starchy or sweet, when we deliver that glucose very quickly to our body, we experience what's called a glucose spike, which means just a rapid increase in how much glucose is in your body. And if you're wearing a glucose monitor, you will see this. It will look like this mountain that's just rising and rising and rising, and then it crashes. You don't need to wear a glucose monitor to understand the benefits of my work, by the way, but it's a cool visual tool. So what happens in your body when we spike? Why is it bad for us? There are three main mechanisms that are going on a physiological level that make these spikes damaging. The first one has to do with our mitochondria. The mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Most people remember that from biology class. So your mitochondria are these little factories inside your cells that are responsible for turning glucose molecules into energy. Okay? They're incredibly important. The problem is when you give them a glucose spike, so when you deliver them a bunch of glucose molecules very quickly, they break down. They kind of go on strike. You know, it's like when you have so much to do on your to-do list that you're just like, I can't do anything, I have to go nap. That's the feeling they get. They're like overwhelmed by all these glucose molecules and they cannot do their job properly anymore. And so what happens, you feel this as fatigue. So you keep eating this sugar and these carbs, but you're exhausted. You wake up in the morning, you're tired. Going to the grocery store is exhausting. Playing with your kids is draining. Your mitochondria are not functioning